Hello learners, welcome back to Bafunde Academy. I'm your tutor Innocent Okworo. I'm taking you through social studies. We are on with our topic, that is the physical environment, and the subtopic is vegetation. We have done some sections of vegetation, that is identifying what is vegetation. Also, we have said what is consisted in particular types of vegetation. We also identified types of vegetation where we say that there are two main types of vegetation, that is natural vegetation and planted vegetation. Natural vegetation is a type of vegetation that grows on its own, while planted vegetation, which is also known as man-made or artificial vegetation, is a type of vegetation that is cultivated by human beings. Now, in this lesson, we are going to focus on the distribution of vegetation in Kenya. Distribution of vegetation in Kenya. Where are these types of vegetation found? How are they distributed? And it is good to note that it is not uniform. It is not distributed in a uniform way. So let's talk about forests, how they are distributed, where they are found. Big forests are found in the following areas. The big forests that we have in Kenya, they are found in the following areas. They are found around Mount Kenya, Mount Elgon, the Aberdares or the Aberdare Ranges, Kakamega, Mau Forest, Kaimosi, Molo, Kaptagat, Kilifi, and Malindi. Those are the areas where you can find big forests in Kenya, particularly Mau Forest and Malindi. When I talk about Malindi, the type of the forest which is in Malindi, it is known as Arabuko Sokoke. Arabuko Sokoke. It is a very big forest in Malindi. We have Mau Forest. We have the Aberdares. That is where you can find big forests. What about Savannah woodland? Where is it found? Where is it located? This type of vegetation is mainly found on the western parts of Kenya. And it's good by now I think you have identified the type of vegetation which is found on the western parts of Kenya and the one which is found in the eastern. Because we said the north part and the eastern part, we have desert and semi-desert. But when we go to the parts of western Kenya, we have Savannah woodland. And the western parts of Kenya include Eldoret, Kericho, Kitale, and Kapsabet. The type of vegetation which is found there is known as Savannah woodland vegetation. What about Savannah grassland vegetation? Where is it found? Savannah grassland vegetation is found in parts of Busia, Nakuru, Naivasha, Nanyuki, and Laikipia. Busia, Nakuru, Naivasha, Nanyuki, and Laikipia. This is where we find the Savannah grassland vegetation. We have this type of vegetation that is known as dry bushland and scrub vegetation. Dry bushland and scrub vegetation. It is found on the eastern part of Kenya and in the Nyika plateaus. In the Nyika plateaus. Remember when we were dealing about the physical environment and we dealt with physical features, we realized and talked about the Nyika plateau, which is the largest plateau in Kenya. And the Nyika plateau, we said it has a plateau within it, which is known as the Yatta plateau. So in this Nyika plateau and the eastern part is where we find dry bushland and scrub vegetation. And some of the areas include Machakos, Kitui, Kajiado, Mwingi, Narok, and Laikipia. This is where we find the dry bushland and scrub vegetation. That's where we find this type of vegetation. So we have discussed the distribution of vegetation. We have seen where we can find Savannah grassland vegetation, Savannah woodland vegetation in the western part, Savannah grassland in the eastern part. We find scrub vegetation also in the eastern part, and we say that there are places where we can find forests. For example, Mau, Malindi, that's where we have Arabuko Sokoke. We have around Mount Kenya, we can also find forest there, Aberdares, and other areas. So it's good as a learner, as a student, to identify places where we can find particular forests or vegetation. For example, if you are asked, where do we find mangrove vegetation? You can't say the eastern or the western, but it is the coastal region. Thank you. Let's meet in the next lesson.